I love important. And I don't think we should just sit with it just in CIs. I think it needs to be well articulated that this is happening with two deans in the same spot talking to our students this morning. This is outstanding, marvelous.
That's 50%, right?
I'm over the top about this. This is super nice.
That's 50%, Dr. Giddens, right? There's 4 deans, there's 4 schools.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're doing pretty good.
Right.
That's pretty nice. I'm pretty excited about that.
Yes.
Thanks, Ms. Campbell.
So I would like to first let Dean Turner, if you will, please introduce yourself and let some of the our CICE fellows know a little bit about you who may not know you very well.
Okay, good morning, and thank you, Dr. Jones and Dr. Giddings and Ms. Campbell. It's always good to be in front of students, even on a Saturday. And the job of a dean does not end on Friday at 5 p.m. It's actually a 24/7 job, because if anything happens to a student, whether it be day or night, it's still under our purview and our responsibility. It's almost like being a school principal. The building may close at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock on a Friday, but you still have responsibilities that take place beyond the 9 to 5. And so I am a proud graduate of Clark Atlanta University. I received my doctorate at Clark Atlanta 31 years ago. Yes, 31 years ago, I received my doctorate from Clark Atlanta University. Dr. Giddings and I were classmates. She finished a few years behind me, but we had classes together. And so it was a wonderful experience. I remember it like yesterday, even though it seems like it was a long time ago, but it feels just like yesterday in many ways. Prior to becoming the dean, about 6 years ago, I became the dean here at Clark Atlanta University. But prior to that, I was the associate dean, senior associate dean for academic affairs at Howard University in Washington, D.C. And prior to that, I was a department chair at Clark Atlanta University. I've served as the chair of the counselor education department. Yes, your dean has a counseling background. It does come in very handy. But prior to that, I served as interim chair and department chair, Department of Counselor Education, as well. So I have a long history with Clark Atlanta University, as well as other universities. I've taught at George Washington University, Johns Hopkins, Bowie State University. And I love teaching. I love working with students. And it's really my passion to serve students and to teach students. It was not my original career ambition, but I was asked to teach as a doctoral student. And with that ask, I discovered my passion for teaching and research and scholarship. And so here I am now, 31 years later, as the dean of the School of Education. So you never know where your passion will find you, or your calling will place you as well. So it's important to try new things and to have those experiences. So you may discover your passion by trying something new. And so once again, it's my joy to be here today. I look forward to this engagement. One of my favorite deans from Clark Atlanta is on this call as well. We talk every day. She's a friend and a mentor and a sister to me now. Dean Jones, she was chair of the search committee that selected me for the position. And so it's always a pleasure to partner with Dean Jones. And we do a lot of collaboration between the School of Education and the School of Social Work. I go to all of their parties and their retreats, and she comes to all of mine. So we just have a strong, relationship and partnership. And she's once again, she's like a family member to me. She knows everything about my son. And and just a little side note, he's coming home for the first time this weekend since he started college. So I was in here cleaning up, Dr. Giddings, when you gave me that reminder, because I'm trying to get ready for his arrival back home. This is his first time coming home since he started college at Morehouse College about a month ago now, since he moved into the dormitory. So this is his first weekend coming home. So I'm just really excited to have him back at home this weekend and cook all of his favorite foods while he's here. So I will yield to my wonderful colleague, Dean Jones, at this point.
Thank you, Dr. Turner. Good morning again. And I too, like Dr. Turner, am excited about this invitation. Dr. Jones, thank you again for the invitation. I'm kind of doing two things at one time today. I have a funeral to go to. My cousin died, and so I'm when I jump off of this call, I got to get myself ready to head out to the services. But I didn't want to miss this opportunity to talk with you all. I've had a chance to meet some of you earlier when I stopped by Dr. Jones's class a few weeks ago, and so I'm going to I might repeat myself a little bit, but I think it'll be a good repeat. I too, like Dean Turner, he is my favorite dean. We clicked when he interviewed, and his son is my favorite, just an all-time favorite, and they can't get rid of me now. Even if they try, they cannot get rid of me. But yes, I too am a graduate of Clark Atlanta University. Got my doctorate here in, I don't remember, uh, 2001, 2. I don't remember. But anyways, it's been a while. My attending Clark Atlanta was my first HBCU experience. I came back to get my doctorate as an adult who had worked in several different capacities, and so coming back to school was like a second career for me to learn this process. So needless to say, it was quite an experience, because when you worked for years and you make this switch, it takes some adjustment. So I had to adjust to being a student again. But it was a great experience. I wouldn't have given it up I wouldn't change it for anything. Again, my background is in social work and education. I started my career as a special education teacher, degree in psychology and a certification in special ed. My interest in special education came about from my work, some of the work I had done prior to getting a degree. I had taught as a kindergarten teacher in several programs, and I was stunned at the number of young kids at 5 years of age that got railroaded to special education. And I use the word railroaded because if they were slow in their own development, not necessarily slow intellectually, they got pushed over to special education. And I was just so taken aback. I couldn't figure out why this was happening. So, and while, especially when they would be in my class, I saw these vibrant little people full of life, ready to learn, know so much. And I couldn't understand that. So I started asking questions. And if you guys don't know this, but Dean Turner knows, I always ask a lot of questions. I started asking questions about what happened to these kids? How did they end up here? What? And no one had answers. Everyone wanted to know why I was asking the questions. Long and short of the story is, I took an interest in trying to meet some of the parents. This was in rural South Georgia. I was young, very young. And so I I started sending notes. I would write a note and pin it on this children's shirt and say, and the note said to the parents, "Come see me, call me, I need to talk with you." And I did that every day for months. And I finally got a parent to show up. And I said to them, why is your daughter in special education? Why is she not in a regular classroom? And I learned from that experience that many of those kids, and I use the word railroaded, had been railroaded to special education because they were poor and Black and lived in a rural community. So that was the beginning of my my interest in advocacy. I started advocating for these kids. I went to my principal and I said, why are these kids here? Why is this happening? Da 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 da. I was told to stop, but I continued anyway. So I started to intervene in the IEP meetings that they had. And I would say to the parents, you don't have to sign this. If you don't want to, if you don't believe your kid needs to be there. Long and short of the story, many of those children moved to regular classrooms, and I found another job. And so I then decided to go back to school, and I got my master's in social work because, again, that was my passion for wanting to help work with families who didn't have some of the same opportunities that we had. Once I got my master's, I got that bug in me after a few years of practice. I got the bug in me again that I needed to be teaching in one of these schools. It always comes through the students, because I would get these families I was working with, or I think I'd adjunct a couple of times, and I would say, why are there no people that's looking like these people that's in these classes? Or why are these kids being relegated here? So all of those things were questions in my mind. Needless to say, I went back and got my doctorate, and came here to Clark, Atlanta to get my doctorate. And things haven't stopped for me since that time. One of the best decisions that I made, I moved, when I came to Clark, Atlanta, I had lived in Southern California for many years. I left the South after my experience with the teaching thing, and I left the South, moved to California, and that was probably the best experience of my life. I always say that. It just opened up a world for me of things that I had no idea existed, number one, opportunities that I didn't know existed. And in my master's program, I learned that I focused on macro work. I did a lot of organization, community work, and advocacy. And I had an opportunity I was concerned with substance abusing parents too. That had become the new thing. You know, it's interesting if you look across the spectrum of things that come up, and particularly in the work that you will do and the work that you're doing, you know, it's always a new trend that happens. And those trends usually impact our families, people that look like us the most. And so in California, I was working with these substance abusing women, and they were always treated so there was no policy that said anything was supposed to happen with them other than remove their children. Long and short of the story, I did my master's thesis looking at testing protocol in the state of California for women, and there was none. And was able to present that at the National Association of Social Workers Policy Day up in Sacramento. That turned from presentation to legislation being passed in California. So I was very excited about that. And I share this with students because I know most of you that move into this profession in social work and even in counseling, you're thinking that the policy is already set. This is how it has to be. And that's not true. You can change it. You can change it. It takes some time, but you have to believe that you can change it. So I got to Clark, Atlanta, got my doctorate, and then I really wanted to teach. I definitely wanted to teach students. That was the goal for getting the doctorate. I wanted to have an impact on what was happening in these classrooms, in these walls of schools of education and social work. So I completed my doctorate. I got my first teaching experience at the University of Tennessee, and I was stationed at the Nashville campus. And from there, I've just taught at, again, various universities like Dean Turner. I left University of Tennessee. I went to Virginia Commonwealth. During my time at Virginia Commonwealth, I had an opportunity to work with the Council on Social Work Education to serve as the director of the Minority Fellowship Program. a program that I am an alum of. It's a federally funded program that provides stipends and training for doctoral students who have an interest in working with mental health, other areas of practice. So I did that for a while, at the same time being employed by Virginia Commonwealth. Left Virginia Commonwealth and moved to Florida A&M as department chair for their Department of Social Work. And from there, I came to Clark Atlanta as the dean, and here I am. So I've had various experiences. Wouldn't change anything. Everything happened for me in this process, happened the way it was supposed to. Everything. I wouldn't go back and change a thing. So I'm happy that it worked the way it did. Sometimes when in the process, when you're in the moment, you say, oh my God, I don't know why I did this. But the outcome could not have been better. I'm starting my 8th year here at Clark Atlanta as the dean. Have had a fantastic experience, worked with some fabulous people, met some great folks. As Dean Turner said, we met during his process of interviewing for the job. And so I'm just very pleased to be a part of this. Happy to have had this opportunity to speak with you again this morning. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Dean Jones. So at this time, I don't know who wants to start off. Dean Turner, Dean Jones.
Okay, you want me to maybe elaborate about some things? I do want to go back and say one thing that I did not say earlier, and I want to say congratulations to all of the students that are part of this program. It is really an honor. First of all, let me go back, because Dr. Jones, Kenya Jones, was the principal investigator along with other members of the counseling faculty, and then Dr. Giddings stepped in to assume the principal investigator role with this proposal. So first of all, kudos to Dr. Giddings and Dr. Jones for their work around getting the grant and then maintaining the grant, which is a lot of work. And then also to Ms. Campbell for her work around keeping things moving. She's the one who pays all of the bills, who processes all of the paperwork, who makes sure you get all of those stipends that you all receive, and all the other perks that come along with being a part of this program. And so we have to say thank you to the folks who are behind the scenes doing all of the heavy lifting to make sure you all are a part of such a wonderful federally funded scholars program. So I want to say just congratulations to all of you for being selected. Not everybody was selected that applied, right? You had to be selected to be in this program, and there's certain things you have to do to stay in this program. But you will find as years go by and you graduate from your respective graduate programs that having participated in a program like this is going to set you apart from other students and other graduates as you go on to pursue. And I'm hoping a lot of you will go on to pursue doctoral degrees. There's still a huge need for more people of color to earn their doctoral degrees in areas of social services, social work, counseling, psychology, anything in the human services area. There's just a huge need. There's so many families and children and communities that need our services, whether it be in a private practice or a hospital setting or an agency setting, the Veterans Administration, you name it. There's so many wonderful options where people need our services. Just yesterday, I was visiting a school in Atlanta called the Ansley School. It's a school that serves homeless families, and the children there range from kindergarten through the 5th grade, I believe now, but they're going to expand to the 8th grade. But it was very sobering to walk into that space. It was a beautiful space, by the way. It's funded by foundation dollars, but it was sobering to walk into that space and they took us into a closet where they had clothing for those children, and to see that many pairs of shoes and clothing that's needed for those children, and to see the toys where these families have nothing. They've been living in their cars. There's so many families in Atlanta that cannot afford apartments, and it's just sobering when you walk into that space. But the most delightful thing was how happy the children were. Oftentimes, children don't know the circumstances, how bad their circumstances really, really are. And so this work that we call human services, be it counseling or social work, is so critically important. And so, you know, the responsibility of taking care of people is next to God's work. That's just my opinion. Hopefully you all have been called to do this work. I know I'm getting a little spiritual right now, but if you've been called to do this work, there's nothing that's going to deter you from doing this work. And so, you know, getting your credentials so that you can do the work responsibly, getting licensed and certified, and all those things are really important. And we are here to help you with that process. Whether you're part of this program or not, we want you to be successful. And as a dean, every day when I walk into that campus, I see it as my responsibility and my inheritance from people who didn't have as much as we have now. We didn't have all these fancy grants back in the day where we could, you know, fund these kinds of opportunities. And so now that we have these wonderful opportunities, you know, you have a responsibility as well to do your very best, and to do your very best in school, to do your very best in your internship and your practicum experiences, and then make a difference when you leave the campus of Clark Atlanta University and represent the university and yourself and your families so well. I'm going to deviate a little bit because being a product of an HBCU is more than just a tagline. It really is. And so you have a lot to be proud of. There's such a rich history at Clark Atlanta University. We were founded in 1865, Atlanta University, and in Clark College, 1869. So we've been doing this a long time at Clark Atlanta University since 1865. I think just a few months after slavery, we were educating people to become educators and preachers, and then eventually social workers. I think Dr. Dean Jones will share this, that the School of Social Work is the oldest school of social work in the world, right? Right, it's the
She gonna come
oldest
off
You are
school.
mute.
correct.
Blue
You are
time,
correct,
yes.
Dean
Right,
Carter.
it's the
That's right.
oldest
The
school
oldest
of
in the
social
nation.
work. I mean, we've been doing this a long time, so it's a gift to be at Clark Atlanta University. And so your job is to multiply that gift and to take it forward and do the best you can to serve families and communities, and to represent your family in the best way possible as well. Remember, you're representing your family. A lot of people would love to be at Clark Atlanta University and to be students here, but you're also representing your families as well. And so we recognize that. Every time a student comes into my office, I think about that they're representing an entire family of people that are proud of you and want to see you do well. So it's bigger than just taking classes and graduating and getting your credentials. It's also about, this is a relationship you'll have with the university for the rest of your life. Some of you may come back and become a professor, or you may come back maybe even as a dean or a provost or a president. You just never know where life is going to take you. And so just really enjoy your time here at Clark Atlanta University. Take advantage of all of the opportunities that are here for you. And we're just so proud of all of you for being a part of this wonderful scholars program. I'm not sure if that's what you wanted me to talk about, Ms. Campbell, but that's what the Spirit led me to say. And so I will yield to Dean Jones at this point.
Dean Turner, I couldn't have said it better. I too hope you guys understand the importance of being here. many times we take our HBCUs for granted. We say that our HBCUs, oh, they got so many this and that problems here and there. Well, you know, there are problems at the PWIs too. They're just not publicized in the same way. So, and I know, having been a student here, guys, I know things don't always go the way we want them to at Clark Atlanta. Things kind of get off-centered, but don't be discouraged. Just pick up yourself and keep moving and try and continue to try and do the very best that you can. It is a calling to do this work. When you work with families who have experienced some of the trauma in so many different capacities, whether it's you work with them in hospitals or in schools and communities, wherever the location may be, the trauma that they have suffered has oftentimes caused them so many hardships. And the very last thing they need is to have a school counselor or a social worker telling them all the things that they can't do and all the things that they won't be able to do. You really want to work with families in the best way that you know how and try and help them help themselves in whatever way that you can, because that's what gets them to the next level. You can't do the work for them, but you can certainly intervene on their behalf and help them build the skills that they need so that they can operate autonomously without you in the system as they move on in their lives. I just think that's so important. And I can never say enough about Whitney M. Young Junior School of Social Work. I told you this was my first HBCU experience. One of my professors in my master's program told me, she's passed away, but I still would encourage you to Google her, Tessie Cleveland, Tessie Cleveland, Clevand. Tessie Cleveland was got her master's here at Clark Atlanta. Well, it was Atlanta University at that time. And this woman, I have to describe her for you to get the impact of who she was. She was a very tall woman and wore these really high heels that made her taller. And she had this kind of way about her, you know. When she walked into a room, people noticed her. It was right away. And when she spoke, she had this kind of raspy, deep voice. And when she spoke, you know, again, that was something that drew people to listen to what she was saying. She served as the first director for the social services department at Martin Luther King Hospital in LA, South Central Los Angeles. And she began teaching in several of the schools of social work. And I got my master's at Cal State Long Beach, and she taught me the practice classes. And that woman had such presence and had so much information and was so unafraid to take chances that I was amazed at all the things she had done. And then knowing the location of the city that she worked in and the population of families that hospital dealt with, I was in awe over her. For me, it felt like she could do nothing wrong. She knew everything. And then she would share with us that she hadn't always gotten it right. She didn't always make the best grade, but she always stayed the course. And that's where I learned that. For those of you who know me, you'll hear me talk about staying the course. She stayed the course in spite of obstacles, in spite of things that didn't always go the way she wanted. She stayed the course. And I believe if you stay the course, you can do almost anything you want to. And that's my message to you guys. Just because it gets a little crazy, and it does, just because you get a little deterred, just because you don't get the grade you thought you should deserve, just because the placement isn't exactly what you wanted it to be, just because the first job may be like, I didn't know I was going to do this. I got my master's because I want to be counseling students. I want to be a therapist. I want to be a da-da-da-da-da. Just because that's not how it works out for you in the beginning, it doesn't mean that you give up. It means you stay at it. You get better at what you're doing. You get better, better, better. I have a saying, your best doesn't get better until you Your better doesn't get best until you keep doing your best, keep doing better. So you just got to stay at it and be committed to this. And be, you know, while you're here at the university, take advantage of every opportunity that's available to you here. Students often come and say, most of the time when I encounter students, I don't know about you, Dean Turner, they're coming because of what? Dean Jones, I need some more money.
Money.
Money is important, people. Don't get me wrong. You got to have money to get through school, but also take advantage of some of the opportunities that's available to you. This grant was one of those things that you took advantage of and applied. You're getting some additional training, you're getting a stipend, you're having the opportunity to meet with deans on a Saturday morning. I don't think very many students get that. And so, and you get an opportunity to learn from some of the best people in the businesses doing this work. I heard Dean Turner talk about the number of schools that he's taught at and he's worked with, and Dean Turner didn't tell y'all about his legislative work that he's done. I mean, he's been up on the Hill. He's done a number of things. So this degree that you're pursuing can open doors for you in ways that you have not even thought about. You just got to believe and you got to take the chance. You got to do your part and you got to take a chance on it. I just, you know, we take a chance on life. That's how we got here. You know, we didn't just like, bam, we're here. We took a chance on life. So I just say, stay with it. Do those things. Be present in the moment. I think that's the best advice I can give you. Be present in the moment, because when you're present in the moment, you're likely not to miss what's going on. It's just that when your body is present and your mind is somewhere else is when you tend to miss what is available for you or what could have been available for you and how you could use that to better yourself.
I'm going to add on to that. It's a good segue, Dean Jones, in terms of self-care. This is a profession where you must take good care of yourself as you're trying to take care of other people. So as a student, you need to make sure that you have developed a self-care plan for yourself. And that may involve, you know, physical self-care, of course, you know, make sure you go to your doctor's appointments, so dental appointments, you know, get your eyes checked, all those things. You just don't stop taking care of yourself because you're a student. Then also your emotional well-being is critically important as you're trying to serve others in social services or social work or counseling. You know, you really have to make sure that you're okay emotionally as well. And so I just want to make sure that you think about, you know, ask yourself this question: do I have an emotional or self-care toolkit in place? And that might involve, you know, having a circle of care, you know, having friends like, you know, Dean Jones and I talk on a regular basis about when we process a lot of things before we go to meetings. Thank God we do that, because if we go to the meeting without processing it first, it might not go so well for everyone there. So, you know, having someone that, you know, that you can talk to, whether it be a friend or a colleague or a therapist, is really important, and taking good care of yourself. Some of you probably have great family support, but sometimes your family is so close to you, it's hard for them to be objective. I know in my family, it's hard for them to be objective. They're just too close to me to be objective. And so sometimes having people that are not so close to you listen to your situations is very, very helpful to get another perspective. And that's the benefit of therapy as well, is to be able to talk to someone and just to have that catharsis, someone allowing you to kind of get it out. And so even as therapists, as counselors, as social workers, we need that safe place to kind of get it out or to unload. And so just make sure that you have your own self-care plan in place. If you don't have one, now is the time to develop that, because as your career elevates, and it is going to elevate with the master's degree and the doctoral degrees, your career is going to elevate. But with that elevation, oftentimes comes more stress, not less stress, more stress. And so just making sure that you have a plan in place and have a safe place for you to vent, to share, and make sure that you're going, like, as again, to your doctor's appointments, you know, making sure you're attending. A lot of us have family histories that we don't know about sometimes, you know, whether it be diabetes or blood pressure issues, etc. You must take good care of yourselves. And if some of us have learned patterns from our parents that might not be so healthy as well. And so just make sure that you're taking really good care of yourself. I see Crystal has put in a book, I'm okay, you're okay. She gave me a book last year. I think her and Leonisa Johnson went to a conference, and I'm blocking on the title of it, Dr. Giddens, but it's a really good book because every now and then I pick it up and I just thumb through it and read different passages that help me during the day. You know, the Bible helps, but there are also some wonderful authors that have written books about self-care and how to take better care of ourselves and dealing with our emotional intelligence and all those things as we try to serve and help others. In the School of Education, we believe in joy and happiness in all things that we do, but sometimes it does get a little stressful. But we do a lot more laughing and smiling than we do crying in the School of Education, and we want to keep it that way. And so, but there are times it does get a little stressful because life sometimes gets in the way. Dr. Giddens will tell you we've had students who've been homeless. We've had students who didn't know how they were going to make it through, but they graduated. And we have one or two that were in situations like that, and they're now in doctoral programs. So you will find a way. Make a way or find one is the logo, is our motto at Clark Atlanta University. And we do that personified, actually, in terms of finding a way or making a way. But just make sure that you also access the resources that are available to you as students and as future practitioners as well.
Big Turner, that was very well said. And most of the time, you know, we never think we need it until something happens, but you need it now. Trust me, you need it now. This is while you're on this journey, you need it now. You need an outlet to be able to have someone to talk to and help balance things off, because your family they love you, but they're not the best people to help you seek that balance of what you're looking for, because they're going to tell you what they think is best based on their relationship with you as your family. But having that outside person, someone that you can talk to and share things with, I think it's good. And someone's going to be, you know, quite honest with you about whatever you present to them. Something oftentimes, oftentimes we'll seek counseling or we'll seek therapy, but when the folks start saying things that we don't necessarily want to hear, we don't go back. And that's the time you need to run back, because you're headed to making some type of breakthrough by accepting what's happening and coming up with ways to deal with it and help yourself be your best self. That's what this is all about. Being your best, the best version of yourself. You want to do that. And so I encourage you to take care of yourself, because this is very, very challenging work. The work that you're thinking of entering into after this phase of your life, it's very challenging. You meet all kinds of families, all kinds of people with all types of issues, and who don't have the skill set to handle these things. So that's why they're coming to you. So you got to be strong, healthy, ready, you know, calm, cool, collected to be able to do this work.
Thank you. So I just wanted to ask, in addition, can you guys share some leadership, some career preparation tips for our scholars? Obviously, you know, all of our scholars are in their final year, so they all should be graduating in May. So that's one big thing about this program, is that we get to have them right before they go out into the career field. So everything is going to be fresh on their brain from the CIs program when they go out and start their careers. Do you guys have any advice or any tips, anything that you feel they should know about starting their careers or leadership, how they can use professional development to help them in this regard?
I would say, make sure you stay engaged with your professional organizations. Continue to go to conferences. This is a lifelong learning is where you should be thinking of. Always continue to learn and to grow. So that's really important. So is any kind of trainings you can go to, make sure you maintain your credentials. All of those things are really, really important. So your national associations, your local organizations that are providing training. Now you all have so many options now because you can log in and do trainings, but it's nothing like going to a face-to-face conference and sitting across the table with colleagues. So I encourage a mixture of both. Sometimes we get very comfortable in these virtual spaces, but we need to sometimes engage with people in person, because I think that's just my opinion. I know that we love the Zoom and the Teams meetings, but sometimes it's really good to go to a conference and talk to people across the table and get to know them in those spaces as well. My other recommendations is that as you enter the real world beyond your practicum and internship experiences, is that when you go into these various workspaces, you need to go in with confidence, but also with humility, because you're still learning. So a balance of being confident, but also with humility, because you're still learning. And so you don't, just because you graduated and you came from one of the best counseling or social work programs in the country, you don't know it all yet. You're still learning. And so just remember that as well. Be selective about where you choose to apply to work as well. Ensure that you are applying for jobs that fit your personality and that fit your disposition and your aspirations. Sometimes we take jobs just because of the salary, and that's not, and we all need a salary, trust me, but that's not always the best. That shouldn't be the leading factor. It should be one of the factors, because you definitely need to get paid. But also, just be selective about where you choose to work, because you're going to spend more awake time with your coworkers than you will with your family. 8 hours a day with your eyes open is more time than you're going to spend with your coworkers than you will with your family. So just be selective about where you work. Go in with confidence. Look the part as well. Just because we're in counseling does not mean we all just wear Birkenstocks and jeans. Okay, so look the part when you go into that job as well. It may be a little bit more relaxed after a while, but you want to also look professional, speak professionally. We don't want to write emails in text code. So make sure you maybe proofread those emails before you send them out. All of these things can ruin your career, actually. Not reading that email carefully, because emails travel. So just be mindful of all of those little nuances that can impact your career and how people perceive you as a professional. In the counseling and social work arena, clinical notes should be done immediately, not the next day, not 2 weeks later. I've seen those things really derail people's careers. They have not kept up with their clinical notes. All the clinical notes now are electronic, so your supervisor can check anytime they get ready to see that you're maintaining your notes and documentation. If they're being funded by Medicaid or Medicare dollars or insurance dollars, those documents will impact their funding. And so I've seen junior human services workers ruin themselves professionally because they're not keeping up with their clinical notes and things of that nature. So just make sure you're keeping up with your documentation. Get to work on time. All those variables are really, really important in terms of how people perceive you as a professional. do more. You always want to do a little bit more than the minimum. And so be exceptional in everything. I think the word I want to use is excellence. Walk in excellence. We have trained you and prepared you not to be mediocre practitioners, not to be mediocre counselors or mediocre social workers. That's not what we do at Clark Atlanta University. We want you to walk in excellence in all things that you do. And once again, we are here for you after you graduate. So if you need, mentorship or guidance or help or, letters of recommendation, all those kinds of things, we're here to support you after you graduate. So you're forever connected with Clark Atlanta University. And I'll stop there and yield to Dean Jones.
Yeah. Dean Turner, I could not have said it better. It was just, when I did direct practice, I came out of a world that if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. So you fired. That's it. You don't get the opportunity to come back and say, oh, well, I was running and I was going to, you just out the door. Because that piece of documentation is, it protects the agency that you work with, but it's also about how you're going to help the family move to the next level and nobody knows what's happening with them. So you got to document. I don't care where you work, if it's in the school system, if it's in the hospital, if it's in a nonprofit organization, a private organization, you can be doing direct service, mental health, counseling, school, whatever it is, you got to write it down. You may be in a hurry and you got to go home or you got to go meet your next whatever you do, but you got to stop and write it down. Do not say, I'm going to take it home and write it down and break. No, because by the time you come back, the people have had a mental breakdown and they have no notes from you. And particularly if you're going, and I said this when I met with Dr. Jones's class, particularly if you're going to work in a hospital setting. Honey, when you leave that hospital and you come back the next day, they may have been discharged, dead, anything. And I'm not saying dead to be facetious, because they do die overnight. You come back and they're dead. There's no social work note in the on the chart. Everybody, no one knows who to reach out to. What was the latest contact you had, and you fired. You don't get an opportunity to explain it. Oh, I was rushing. I had to pick up the. It doesn't matter. You're fired. You're out the door. And that follows you wherever you try to go next and the next. So just make sure you document. Take time to do your documentation. I do believe, I think Dean Turner talked about networking. So very important. Very, very important. You need to attend conferences. You need to network with people. There is a lot of online networking, but I think for your best impression, you need to be face-to-face with people. If there's an opportunity to be face-to-face, you want to do that. You want them to remember who you are. See, if you're on a Zoom call like this, where it's like, how many people here? Like 20 at least? At least 20 people?
No, Dean Jones. We have
About
35. I
35.
feel
Oh
like
my.
Donald Trump. I feel like
Okay.
Donald Trump, our rallies,
35
we are proud of our
people.
numbers.
You got 35 people on a Zoom. What makes you stand out? If I'm meeting with you face to face and we're having a conversation, I have an opportunity to make some mental notes that, oh yeah, and so do you. So we are in the world of technology. It's not going away. Embrace it, but also know where to draw the line when it comes to you, your professional development, and where you want to go. If there's an opportunity to meet with people face to face, do that. And one of my biggest pet peeves is show up on time. If it starts at 9 o'clock, be there at 8:45. Now, I know that's a different way for most young people living. Y'all, it starts at 9, y'all running the door at 3 minutes and 9, and you're ready to go. And the reason I say give yourself that time and show up early, because you want to be relaxed. You don't want to be sweating from rushing. You want to be composed. You want your suit and jacket or whatever you have on not to be wrinkled. You want people to notice you. You want them to see you for who you are and what you bring to the process. You don't want to have your papers falling out your briefcase. You're trying to find them because you got there at the last minute. Get there a little early so that you can be well composed. You're going to already be looking good. I know that. But you will be well composed, have all of your stuff together, and had a minute to just take a breath before you walk into that person's office to talk to them. And this may sound a little old-fashioned to you guys, but these are the things I know that work. And I know when people come to meet with me, those are the things I'm looking for. And if you're still fumbling while you're trying to get in the meeting with me and you don't know where your stuff is, I'm taking a mental note of that, because that tells me in the school system, that in a university setting, it tells me you ain't gonna be on to class on time. The students gonna be waiting on you. You ain't gonna have your stuff together. You're gonna be saying, y'all wait, let me find it. And the students paid for this education. You need to be ready to go when they walk in the door. And that's the same way when you go to an interview. And when you're out, even when you get the job, the representation of your company is so important. You don't want to go to the conference and dog your company. Oh, they don't do nothing right over there. I hate them. They don't do this. That. That's not what you want to do, because you never know who knows who. That's for a fact. You never know who knows who. So you just want to always be professional. And for us as people of color, I think a lot of times they don't expect us to be professional. Dean Turner is professional wherever he goes. Trust me. I'm the one that'll go, but he is professional wherever he goes. And he presents in a professional manner. He's always dressed professionally, even when he's wearing just, khakis and a white shirt. He presents in a professional manner. And that will carry you a long way, people, because folks will remember you. You may not even get the job at that moment, but they will remember you when something else comes up, and they'll say, oh my God, I remember Asha Clark. That was a young lady that we met with. And she was presented so well, and she had such good information. We have another position here. Call her and see if she's interested in coming back in to talk with us about that. That's how it works in the real world, people. That's exactly how it works. So those are my words to you. Be sure you want to be sure you're sure of you.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go in knowing that you're sure of yourself.
Yeah.
Now, don't go in, I'm not saying you go in and take over the people's interview and, want to run their business. No, you go in sure of who you are and what you bring to the table and how you present yourself. Because believe it or not, guys, each one of us, when we walk into a setting, we're representing all Black people, whether you know it or not.
Exactly.
Yeah, you represent all of us. So you want to always come with your best self. Be your best self. And if you don't get the job, it had nothing to do with you. I always say they missed out on a good employee, and keep it moving and go on to the next thing.
And it's amazing, Dean Jones, that your clients will pick up on it as well. When you're working with children or students or families, and they see how you're presenting yourself, you'll be surprised. Sometimes they'll come back to the next session walking a little different, dressed a little different, because of their time that they have spent with you. And so remember, you are kind of the example for folks when they're coming into social services agencies or into a school setting, and you'll be amazed that sometimes they're watching you, and then when they come back to that second or third session, they might have on a similar outfit to what you had on, because they want to represent themselves better, or they want to present themselves better. So you're a role model for others. People are watching you. Younger students are watching you as well on campus, whether you realize it or not. The undergraduate students see you all coming to your classes and walking the promenade at 4:30. They're watching you, and they're thinking that must be a graduate student there going to their classes. So there are younger people watching you and watching us as professors and as staff on campus as well. So you're role models, and so just remember that when you go into these respective settings, that people are watching you as well.
Dean Turner's right. When I was a kindergarten teacher and then I moved to work in a special education, I dressed up every day. And they were just little people. just little people. They were 6, 7 years old. But I dressed up every day because I wanted those little people to see what they could be. Yeah, and when we did like floor stuff with this kindergarten kids, when we did floor stuff on the floor of painting, I put on the apron, and I always was prepared to sit with them because I'm modeling for them what they can be. Just because I was the teacher, I wanted them to know that they too could become the teacher. And so I just encourage you, because you guys are going to see a lot of young people out here as you move into your profession, that's still trying to find themselves, I guess is the word, still trying to figure out what's best for them. You want to be the best role model you can be for them. And that doesn't mean you got to be all stiff and tight, you can't even like smile. No, be yourself, but be the best version of yourself. Questions, comments,
All
anything?
right, yes. I would like to open up the floor for our fellows to ask any questions. You can come off mute and ask. You can put the question in the chat and Miss Person Hudson can read it. However you like to ask. Now is your time. Go ahead, Miss Clark.
So, well, first of all, good morning, everybody.
Mhm.
When you are breaking into the working world, what is a really good question that you can ask employers during interviews that'll make you stand out from everybody else? Because they always ask at the end of the thing, do you have any questions for us? And I try to have something, but I want to be able to
That's a
stand
good
out.
question, Ms. Clark. In terms of interview preparation, I always encourage folks to do their homework. Know as much as you can about that organization as possible. So spend some time engaging in research about that organization. If they recently received a big grant award and you know about that and you ask a question about that, that's going to be very impressive. Or they just initiated a new program at that school or at that agency, and you happen to, I'm always impressed when an applicant comes in and they know about our rankings, they know about our accreditation status, they know when our next visit's going to take place. That's always so impressive, and they can ask questions about, those kinds of things. So do your homework about an agency. If you're going to meet with United Way, know how they're being funded, know who the directors are, know who the leadership team is, who's comprised of the leadership team, know who's on their board, because you might find that there's a Clark Atlanta University faculty member or administrator on their board, and you're able to say, well, I was doing my research and I noticed that one of my faculty members is on your board. That kind of thing is what sets you apart from other applicants, those that have done their homework before they get to the interview. And they're not asking basic questions. They know where the offices are located. They've done their research. They know where they know who works there. They know who has the credentials. Always a good question for those who are maybe not licensed or certified yet is to ask about supervision opportunities. Are there opportunities here for me to earn my supervision hours? And ask about professional development. They want to, that's always a good question to ask about, can you share more with me about opportunities for professional development? Those are good questions to ask, because that demonstrates to the employer that you want to continue to learn and grow as well. And so just do your homework, do extensive research. Whenever I've gone on job interviews, sometimes I knew more about the agency than the people who worked there. And sometimes the information they were, sometimes they don't give you the most accurate information because you've already done your homework or you've read the articles about them in the newspaper, etc. So just do your homework before you go on any job interview. Take the time to do the research.
And thank you.
And Dean Turner, can I just add, with doing your homework, a part of doing your homework is be on time. Be on time. If the interview starts at 9, you need to be there no later than 8:45. And you know why? Because you need to have composed yourself, ready to go when they call you in, and not running in the door at 2 minutes to 9 and say, "Oh, I'm Jenny Jones. I have an interview with Dr. Kenya Jones, and I'm sweating." So just make sure you be on time.
Yeah, it may mean doing a drive-by the evening before, so you know where the
Sure.
parking is and what door you're going to go in and all of that, so that way you're not scrambling. So oftentimes when I've done interviews, I've gone, if I'm not familiar with the location, I'll go the day before to kind of map out where I should park and all of that, so I'm not scrambling, trying to find a place to park and that kind of thing, and finding the entrance to the agency, because sometimes that can be tricky as well. And that'll have you end up being late. And sometimes the traffic in one part of the day in the morning looks very different than the traffic in the afternoon. So just do your homework in that regard as well, to kind of maybe do a drive-by of the agency and see what it looks like.
Yeah.
And not just rely on Google Maps, just actually go yourself and see. And I see Cameron has her hand up. Cameron Jackson, I think there's a question in the
Thank you,
chat
guys.
as well.
Good morning, everybody. My question is similar to the question that Sergio had put into the group chat. I mean, not into the group chat, into the comments about how have Dr. Jones and Dr. Turner been able to collaborate as interprofessionals from two different backgrounds? Like, how have you guys been able to implement this environment of togetherness and teamwork in your own lives, inside and outside of CA?
Well, this grant is one example.
Exactly.
we both had to co-sign that this was going to be okay, and that the schools are going to work intentionally together. But we also have classes that students take across both schools. So there's a opportunity for students to do cross-registration between social work and counseling with specific classes, not all classes, but with specific classes. Like, and Dean Jones students sometimes take our leadership classes for those who have interested in becoming leaders in various places. So that's an opportunity for us to collaborate around courses. And then just in other areas, Dean Jones and we've been on panels together at conferences and those kinds of things on campus as well as off campus.
And in the practice world, the question, I guess, would apply as well, Cameron. You want to meet your colleagues at other agencies or in other departments, depending on what type of agency you work with, and you want to just get to know some of those folks, and you'll determine by meeting with them, talking with them, seeing them at conferences, who of that group that you might want to have that kind of relationship with, to build that kind of professional relationship with, that you guys can do things together, run groups together. You guys may want to do some presentations together. You find those people as you move along. And most importantly, you got to find somebody that, works, that you connect with. Everybody that you meet will not be that person. You want to have somebody that you can connect with and be able to build from there.
Thank you for that.
I see Unique has his hand raised.
Hello, my name is Unique. I'm from the Clinical Mental Health Department in Counseling Education. And I wanted to ask, because we're about to graduate, most of us are possibly going to be interviewing around maybe like November, try to be like early January, February. What should we be doing I wouldn't want to use the word convince, but that's the best word I have for that even though we're just entering out of school, that we're going to be just as prepared as other people also interviewing for positions, because I noticed that people assume, oh, we just only were interns, or we've like our only experience is these internships, how do we showcase and prove that these internships were more than just internships, or us going to these classes make us not only on the same par, but similar to parts of people who've probably been in the field for 1 or 2 years?
That's a great question. We all were neophytes at some point, and we all had to go into those interviews to demonstrate that we were capable and ready for the opportunity. And so once again, you should do your homework, know what that agency is expecting. Be realistic about what you have been trained to do as well, because sometimes they'll ask you maybe about a technique that maybe you have not been prepared to provide. And so that might be a call for professional development. I would also recommend that while you're preparing to graduate, attend conferences. Attend conferences. There are trainings that they're providing at these conferences around various kinds of techniques and so forth. So continue to build your skills in those other areas as well. So you can say, well, yes, I am. Like, for example, on my first job, they were really impressed that I was certified in CPR already. I'd already had the CPR training. That training was free through the Red Cross. They were impressed with that. I had done that on my own. And so you might not think that those things are important, but those other kinds of certifications that you can earn while you're a student are really important. I also did some other types of training through the Red Cross that were free trainings on first aid and psychological first aid and those kinds of things. So if there's some trainings that you can attend even as a student and you're able to have a list of additional trainings that you've participated in outside of Clark Atlanta University, try to go to those. A lot of those training opportunities are free. And once again, if you're a student member of the American Counseling Association or the Georgia Licensed Professional Counseling Association, you should be going to those conferences. And we do have a little money in the School of Education to help with conference attendance, but one of the rationales of your being a part of this grant is that you have some additional funding to support your attendance at some of those kinds of things as well. So I would say continue to build your dossier around trainings and certifications, etc., that are going to be marketable to an employer, that are going to make you stand out from an employer, and also going in with confidence. I've been well trained. They're going to ask you about your counseling orientation in terms of, are you person-centered, et cetera. So making sure that you really understand your orientation in terms of counseling and what it is your preferences are in terms of providing services. Your theoretical orientation, as they call it. Make sure that you're well grounded in your theoretical orientation as well. And make sure that you have a great mentor as well, whether it be your internship supervisor, your faculty supervisor. Continue to have conversations with them so that you can build your confidence as you're going into those interviews. Utilize our counseling center. They do mock counseling interviews with students. In fact, they're doing a lot of that now. Let them review your resume and engage and see yourself engaged in an interview session. So do those mock interviews with the counseling center, with the Career Counseling Services office on campus, and Dr. Giddings and Dr. Jones can share that information with you.
Dr. Turner, I cannot echo that enough. There are some resources right here on campus that you guys need to take advantage of. The counseling, the Career Center is one of those places. Like you said, they're doing those interviews now. Just go and practice, and I know most of you are in your internship probably during the day or in classes, but reach out to Dr. Turner, what's her name? Miss
I'm blocking on her name, but her
We'll
office
see
is
you.
in the and the School of Business, the
Yeah, down on the bottom
services
level.
office. Mhm.
Tiana, I will send you her name, but make an appointment to go and do some of that with her. And so you can see yourself. I mean, you see yourself on Zoom all the time, but you want to have something that you can go back and let her do a mock interview with you and record it. And then you can see yourself, how you present, what your mannerisms are. Are you over talking the interviewee? All of those things will be very helpful for you in being professionally prepared when you go out for an interview.
Thank you. Miss Kelly, did you still have a question? I seen your hand was raised for a while.
And her name is Tiara
Arnold.
Tiara Arnold is the
Miss
director.
Arnold, yeah.
Mhm.
Tiara Arnold. So
Tiara Arnold is director
yeah.
of the Career Services Office at Clark Atlanta.
Yeah.
If someone
Okay,
had a
Ms.
question.
Mumford, do you still have a question?
Yes, I still have a question. My name is Jasmine Montford. I'm part of the clinical mental health track as well. My question is, so we talked about change and change of policies briefly with, I think, Dean Turner. So, and I know all of us are here because we want to see change within our field. So how do we go about bringing change to an environment where it's not the norm to change policies and rules and things of that nature?
And you're referring to in various agencies or in the community?
In various agencies and certain communities as well. So, me personally, I work inside of a correctional facility, but I see there's a lot of change that needs to happen, but there's not a lot of people who are on board for the change that needs to happen. So, how do you go about um making change happen without, upsetting the tenure employees and things of that nature?
Hmm. There's various ways to impact change. Sometimes change happens through legislation. And so one simple way to make a change is to make sure you're voting. Because the folks that are driving these organizations that are in leadership roles in government typically are elected into office. And so voting is a simple way to influence change on a personal level. But then there's other ways to influence change by getting into policy development, and Dean Jones can speak more about that from a social work perspective, and also, once again, being involved in your professional organizations, because they influence change at a macro level. So there's micro level change, and then there's macro level change. So, the small changes are things we can change from day to day. And then the macro changes are more overarching, larger changes that sometimes are influenced by the government or elected officials or those who are in leadership roles. And so there's various ways to influence change. Now, how do I influence change without losing my job? Is probably the question I'm kind of hearing as well. Showing up, doing the best you can every day is a way to influence change as well, because people notice that you're doing a great job and they will come to you and say, what do you think about this? When you show up and do good work every day, I mean, it happens to Dean Jones and I all the time, where we get calls from the administration of the university. What do you all think about this? Because we show up and we do our job every day. And so showing up and doing your job every day, people will in turn turn to you and say, what do you think about this? How could we do this better or differently? And so that's my response. Show up and do the best job you can. There's some agencies, some organizations that are not open to change quickly. For a whole host of reasons. It could be the culture of that environment. It could be history that's tied to why those changes aren't being made. And I have to be honest, there's some places that are very dysfunctional. There are organizations that are very dysfunctional, and sometimes we don't realize they're dysfunctional until we're in them. And we have to make some tough decisions. But we can influence change by showing up and doing the best we can every day, and making recommendations when we're asked, and making those recommendations. I hope that answers your question somewhat. But as a new person coming into an agency, sometimes the feedback will be, but you haven't been here long enough. Sometimes that's the feedback that you will receive. And I wouldn't take that as rejection either. But we show up every day, we do the best we can. And hopefully in the settings that you're talking about, we know that the correctional systems need a lot of work. They're not really correctional in lots of cases or rehabilitative in lots of cases. That's probably that's probably one of the agencies where there's the most turnover, actually, is in the correctional field. People get burned out very quickly because they get stressed out with the lack of change that's happening in those environments and the level of stress in those environments. And so that's probably one of the areas where there's a lot of turnover and a lot of burnout. I don't know if I answered your question or not. I did the best I could on a Saturday morning.
I can just add a couple of things. Change doesn't happen fast. That's number one. You got to be willing to stay the course and stay with it. It's not going to happen fast. You're in a correctional institution working there. Change in that setting is going to take quite a bit of time. However, that doesn't mean it can't happen. Those systems are governed by some higher group than just the correctional institution. You know, they're state funded, federally funded, and the best way I have learned to impact those systems, as Dean Turner said, is through voting. Organizing people to vote, organizing people to help change that system, because you can't change it by yourself. That's for sure. And funding, listen, everybody needs funding. And if there are enough people who can document that change needs to occur in that institution, and they approach their representatives, their city council, their state representatives, their national representatives, with some concrete information around what needs to happen, and there can be some change, but it takes a minute. It doesn't happen overnight. But you also have to really, really, really talk with those people who are outside of that job, outside of that prison, who vote on the funding for those institutions, because that's really where it makes a difference. If funding gets cut, everybody start looking to see, okay, what we need to do different. But that's one way to do that. I shared with Dr. Jones's class when I was in my working in one of my internships in Southern California. I worked in a hospital, and the hospital had the basement area of the hospital was called the infirmary, and that's where low-income families went to get services. And this was during the height of the crack cocaine epidemic. And so we saw all of these Black women that came into the hospital. Usually they were at the labor and delivery stage. They had not had any prenatal care because they didn't have any insurance. They automatically got tested, whether they had been high or visibly high or looked high or whatever. They just automatically got tested, automatically. And if they were positive, their children were taken right away. And at the same time, I saw a lot of white women who live in Pasadena, California is a pretty upscale area of Southern California. I would see these white women come in visibly high and in labor. and deliver these drug exposed babies screaming and screeching at the top of their lungs and little trembling everywhere. Their children didn't get taken away, because that was Dr. So-and-so's patient. And we didn't even, as the social worker, I didn't even get to interview them, because that's just not how it happened. So at the time I started keeping count of myself, of the number of students, the number of folks that came in like that. Black people automatically got tested, children got taken, and they were back out on the streets. And I would share that in my policy class, and I was very interested in the disparities in that. Long story short, I did my master's thesis on that same process. When I completed the thesis, my policy professors encouraged me to present it to my at the NASW conference. What is it? Advocacy Days. They call it Advocacy Days now in Sacramento. And through that process, California got a testing protocol for women. So it can happen. It's a long process. You got to stay the course. You got to believe in it. But it has to be your state representative, your city council, someone outside of that facility has to be involved. You have to keep them involved and keep them up to date with data. You got to have data, and not data that happened 20 years ago, data that's happening right now, and data that you've collected over the last year or so. And that's a long, arduous process. But because I had to do a master's thesis, it was easier for me to do, because I had to collect data on something. And that was one of those things that I found I was most appalled by. And I worked in an area of Los Angeles, right at King Drew Hospital. And that's where they had the highest number of Black women showing up in labor, and who were high, and kids got taken away. So that was a part of that whole explosive time in our society, where we had so many kids born drug exposed. It was known as the crack epidemic. You can go back and look it up. That was a really terrible time in our history here. But the long and short answer is things can be done. It just takes a minute. And as you're just starting out, you got to ask yourself, is this the kind of thing I want to take on right now? Or do I just want to continue to observe and take and collect data and wait until I'm in a better place to make this type of change? I didn't mean to be too long-winded, but I hope that was helpful.
Okay, thank you. We'll take 2 more questions here. Mr. Woods, you still have your question?
Yes, good morning. Thank you. James Woods from the Whitney M. Young Jr. School of Social Work. And my question would be, when, I'm not going to say most of us, but when individuals start their journey into their master's program, we start because we have a passion for something. And as we move through the program, potentially, normally as it happens, we develop more passions for more things. What would be your advice for someone who May is graduation and now I am passionate about 9 different things, but each one of those things requires a tremendous amount of work and time and effort that would essentially lead to burnout? What would be your advice to kind of hone in to make things a little easier, I guess, when it comes to graduation and where to go after graduation as far as the workforce?
That's a good question, Peter.
I would say, first of all, don't lose your passion. That's the first thing. Hold on to your passion, because that's what's going to drive you to those, it's going to elevate you to those places you want to be and grow. And it's okay to have more than one passion. How about that? But I think, as you move forward, prioritizing those passions, where do I start? And that might be a call for, as I said earlier, some mentorship, talking to someone who's done some of the things that you want to do. You don't know the life of a professor unless you talk to a professor and you get an opportunity to see what does the day-to-day look like. You know, being able to shadow someone. When I was a doctoral student, I didn't do this much at the master's level, but at the doctoral level, I would go interview people for my papers in my classes. I would build that into my research papers. I would go interview someone. Like I had a real interest in employee assistance counseling. And so every time I did a paper, I would go interview a different EAP counselor, someone who was doing it privately, someone who's working for a company, someone who worked for a state organization. And I was able to build a kind of a research bank of kind of what I thought I wanted to do after gathering and collecting all of this information. It was called being really, really nosy. That's what it was called. But in higher ed, we call it being intellectually inquisitive. But I was being nosy. I wanted to find out, you know, how do you like it on this side? How do you like it over here? And I would go interview people. Then I also volunteered at the conference, at the EAP conference, because that was one of my passion areas. My dissertation focused on EAPs and HBCUs. And so every time I got an opportunity to go interview someone, I would tie it into a paper. And usually people were really welcoming to me and say, yeah, come on, I'll be happy to talk with you. And one of those interviews turned into a job. I actually went to go interview one of the only minority-owned EAP companies in Atlanta. And I wore, you know, I put on the Brooks Brothers and everything for that interview. It was an informational interview. And 2 days later, I got a call asking me to come back. And I didn't know why. And after, I was just gathering information about EAPs, but I wore the suit, the whole 9 yards. I was professionally dressed and had my questions. I sent my questions in advance. I didn't take up too much of their time. And 2 days later, I got a call asking me to come back. They wanted to hire me while I was a doctoral student. And so you just never know, but you have to put yourself in the right places. And you have to ask questions and, you know, talking to your professors, talking to people in the field, once again, going to conferences, having your own business cards. I know you all use virtual business cards. And I have to commend one young man who just sent me a LinkedIn, Lawrence Delaney, while we were on this call. That's what we're talking about. He sent me a LinkedIn request while we were on this call. I don't know if he's still here. There he is at the bottom of my screen. He sent me a LinkedIn request. See, that's what I'm talking about. Those are the kinds of things you have to do to build your own circle of support. That's what you have to do now. We didn't have LinkedIn during my time, Lawrence, but that was your way of building your own circle of support and community as well. And so he'll be getting things that fall into my feed now about what's happening in counseling and higher education. So that's what we have to do, Mr. Woods. And I'll yield to Dean Jones since you're one of her wonderful students.
Mr. Woods, I agree with you, Dean Turner. Mr. Woods, I think, yes, you're going to have lots of different interests. But of those, I think you need to identify the top 3 and write them down. And then do some research on each of them to see, you know, kind of what the job, how that profession is described, what the job would look like for each of them. And then what is it that you want? What do you want? You know, what do you envision for yourself? You might have on the paper that you want to do medical social work. Well, you got to do a little research about medical social work and see what that's all about. You might want to do be a therapist. Well, coming right out of school, you're not going to be able to be a full-fledged therapist, but you can get a job in an agency that provides therapy, and you'll have to work for it, getting licensed in those things. Or you might want to do something else outside of the box in the profession. But it's always best. It's easy for you guys it's easy to say these things, but you want to put them. For me, I put them on paper. For you guys, you write it on your computer screen.
I'm surprised Dr. Giddings and Dean and Dr. Jones don't have them doing vision boards. Because that, I mean, I did that. I thought it was like, oh, this is flaky. I don't need to do a vision board. And
No.
I did one after I received my doctorate. And I can tell you, I still have that vision board. And a lot of the things that were on that vision board have come to life. Even at my later age, a lot of those things have come to fruition that I put on that vision board almost 20 something years ago. So vision boards, you might think they're flaky, but putting those things on your vision board and keeping that, whether it's electronic, you all probably do e-boards now. But back then we would cut things out of the magazine and the newspaper and paste them onto a real
That's
bulletin
right.
board. But vision, I think seeing it and putting it in writing, as Dean Jones has said, is really important. Writing it down, putting it on something tangible that you can look at. And then I always say prayer always helps too. Having that spiritual support, that's just my own personal philosophy, is really important. They're going to be naysayers around you. They call them haters, I think, and all of that. You have to tune all of that out and focus on what works for you.
That's right.
And prioritizing what works for you.
That's
And
right.
you can't compare yourself to other people either. You have to do it's James Wood's roadmap. It's not going to be my roadmap or Dean Jones' road. It's going to be your roadmap and what you envision. And anything is possible. You want to have a private practice, you want to own your own firm. All of those things are possible, but you need to make sure you're doing your homework, doing your research, and write it down. Write down a plan. Before you start a private practice, go to some small business development workshops so you learn how to run a business, how to market, how to set up a private practice. Go to those private practice trainings, learn how to do all of those things as well. So you say you want a private practice, but what do you know how to set up a business and how to run a business? So you don't go run out there and spend thousands of dollars on an office, because a lot of people now are doing private practices virtually.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's good advice. Again, I know you guys use all of the technology to capture your moments, but I would just highly recommend that you stop for a minute, Mr. Woods, and write down those 3 areas, professional areas that you're interested in, and do some research about each of the 3, and try and figure out which one of these that you think would be a best fit for you, because only you know you and what would work for you. And then do that outside work that Dean Turner just talked about. If you're interested in school social work, then you need to at least go to a school social work conference and know about the association. Find out who here in the Atlanta area, if you want to stay in Atlanta, who here in the Atlanta area is involved with those associations that you could reach out to. People love for you to call and ask for their help. They really do. And so that's how you start to build some of that networking. But and if you're interested, I don't know what you're interested in. If you want to do therapy, private practice, you gotta build to that. You don't graduate from with the master's and go right into private practice, because you got to get licensed. So you want to start thinking about what it takes to get where you want to go. These are my 3 top things. I want to do these 3 things. What does it take for me to get there? And write that down and do the research, do the homework. And I know you're probably saying, well, I've been in school for the last 2 or 3 years. I've been doing the homework. Well, that's how you're getting to be able to graduate. So
Right.
now if you want to get the job, you got to put in that same amount of energy and stay focused. And the only thing I say this to all the students, whatever it is, you have to stay the course if you really want it.
And
And
make
that
it
course,
tangible. Make it tangible.
yeah,
You're not going to do
yeah,
everything in the first 5 years. Like maybe have
right.
a 2-year plan, then a 5-year plan, and a 10-year plan. That's the way I've kind of led my life. It's kind of been in increments. You can't do it all at the same time. So maybe, developing kind of a 2-year plan. What's the plan between now and graduation? Focus
Right,
on that. Because
right.
sometimes what we do, we put everything on the plate, and you can't eat everything that's on the plate. So maybe put the desserts over here for right now, and let me eat this first. And so let's do it in tangible ways and make it achievable. Because sometimes we make we put too much on our plan, and we can't possibly achieve all of it at the same time. So make it tangible, small bites at a time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So make your goals achievable and realistic and practical based upon your own personal situation and your own personal financial situation.
And I'll just say one last thing. Your goals are not everybody else's goals. I would suggest that you take care of you. And back when I was a kid, or probably your age, is keep your business to yourself. You don't need to tell everyone what you want to do. You just take care of James. And if you want to set up an appointment to meet with me, James, I'll be more than happy to do that. We can talk through some more of this. But I think Dean Turner's right. Put it on that elephant one bite at a time. And it's good to have a plan around biting that elephant. I hope that was helpful.
Absolutely, more than you know. Thank you both so very much.
Thank you. I think Dean Turner may have to go shortly. I know Miss Wright had her hand up for a while here, so this will be our last question. Miss Jackson or anybody else, please put your questions in the chat. Maybe we can send an email out or something and get a reply back from our deans. I know they'll be happy to discuss further, or you
They
can
can
set up
always
an
come by
appointment to
and
meet.
visit with us. You're our students, so you can always come by the office. It's best to make an appointment, but you know the door is literally open. So if you ever want to just stop by and check on me, you're welcome to do that. I do have nice snacks in my office.
Oh, he does. When I was over there, hey, Dean Turner, how you doing today? Grab me a snack.
Ms. Campbell, I'll stay on to take Ms. Jackson's question because I know it's going to be something related to social work. She's one of my students. And then
Okay.
that will be
I'll
it.
stay around for one more, and then I have to go get ready to go pick up Jacoby.
Okay, Miss Wright, go ahead.
Well, morning, everyone. I am part of the clinical mental health track, and I just want to first start by giving you guys your flowers. Just because you guys are living the representation that you wanted to see, when you guys were in our shoes, and it's amazing to see that your passion, and that's where my question stems from. Coming from someone like myself that is an empath, and when I am currently in my internship, I am there with my clients. And I have multiple hats. I am a caregiver for my grandparents. I work full-time in special education department. I see 15 clients a week in internship, and I want to be there for everyone. So my question is, how do you guys continue being the change you want to see in your community, but still having, like we talked in the beginning, with that self-care, making sure you guys are okay? Because I plan on being in your shoes eventually and being a professor here at Clark Atlanta soon. And so with you guys mentioning earlier, the more we do in this career, the more stress we're going to have. So my question is truly, how do you guys handle that stress?
Not very well for me.
I love the transparency. I really do. Because like I was saying,
and you know, you asked some great questions here. I'm a caretaker. I take care of my mother. She's 94. And I serve as the dean of the school. I work with students on dissertation committees. I serve on all these other committees outside of the school. I just got elected as the president of our of the board for our national for our Council on Social Work Education, our accreditation organization. So I do a lot. How do I do it? Probably I don't take care of myself as good as I need to or should, but I do take some time for me. I try to take time for me as often as I possibly can. Dr. Jones stays on me all the time about doing things, walking and getting out to do other things. I get a massage, like I try to go every week, but I get a massage all the time, all the time. That is very helpful for me. I just recently started doing the stretching thing. They have a stretch lab at my massage office business, the massage business I go to. And so I do those physical kinds of things. I used to be a walker. I walked every morning before coming to work, but I after COVID hit, I just couldn't get myself back into it. I start and stop, start and stop. But that is probably one of the best things I can recommend to you. If you can just carve out about 30 minutes a day to walk, put your headphones on and just tune out everything else in the world, you will feel so refreshed when you return back from that walk. It's just such a great thing for you. It's healthy for you, but it also helps to release some of that in your head. And then I'm giving you all the advice of things I need to start back doing. Try to find some time just for you to spend just the movies, the park, reading a book, just a little time for you. Caretaking is very, very challenging, very challenging.
Yeah, just make sure you have a life outside of just being like, I'm not Dean Turner all the time.
Yes.
When you
Yes.
see me at Walmart shopping, I'm dad usually at that point. I'm taking care of me and my son. So you need to have a life. I mean, that's just probably the simple way to answer that. Have a life outside of work. You know, I enjoy working in the yard. I enjoy visiting my family. Just have a life outside of work. You have to turn this off from time to time and just focus on you and your family and other things. And sometimes that can be difficult, but you have to create boundaries in your life where you can turn some of this off, literally turn it off, you know, whether it means going to a nice restaurant or exercising, whatever works for you. But, you know, spiritual life, all those things are vitally important, but you need to have a life outside of just being whatever profession, you know, whatever profession you're in, just have a life outside of that.
And
It's
Dean
really,
Turner
really
knows
important.
Dean Turner knows that I love flowers, plants. So I have my house, I have a sun porch that's windowed around. And so I have all my plants there and I have all of my little special stuff and my little seating areas. And so I just go out there and kick back on the sun porch and just get lost in the moment. I mean, it's my favorite place of this house. I go out there and I have a little small, it's not a couch, but it's a bench that can seat two. And I have it full of fluffy pillows and things. And girl, I kick back up there and my music comes out there too. And yeah, I just enjoy, just breathe. I just breathe for the moment. So that's the kind of self-care, walking, going to the park, those kind of things. But sometimes some of the most simplest things are that. I garden a little bit. I got the best looking yard out here now, I want you to know. Not because of all of my work, but I paid for some of it. But my mailbox, every year I plant flowers around my mailbox. Girl, I'm looking at them now. They are the bomb. Everybody pass by here and say, "Oh my God, what'd you do to make them grow so much?" So
Yeah,
it's
I have the
things.
best looking yard in my neighborhood, I'm proud
Yeah,
to say.
yeah,
It
yeah.
really is. I love working out in the yard, but you know, you all are young. You should be having fun too. You should be going out and dancing. And when I was your age, I had a good time. I was working on my doctorate, but I had a good time. I traveled every summer. I did not take summer classes. I was on somebody's beach or island or somewhere. So you all should be having fun while, you know, enjoy your lives, enjoy
Yeah,
yourself, because
yeah,
you need to have a good time and then come back to work with restoration and fully ready to go. So just
yeah.
make sure you're having some fun too. I love to travel. I really love to travel. I'm going to do more of that. Dean Jones and I are kind of in our third or fourth quarter of our careers, and we've been having lots of talks about what that next quarter is going to look like. And we want to enjoy every phase of your life. It's really important to enjoy every phase of your life. I know you're building your careers and so forth, but take some time to have some intentional fun, whatever that looks like for you. Safe fun, of course,
Safe, fun.
but you know, have some fun because you're young. You should be enjoying yourselves.
Yeah. Take some time for
Thank
you.
you. You guys answered that beautifully. Thank you.
I think Cameron has one because I have to jump off. Cameron, your hand
My
is up.
question is very quick. I just would like to know if we could learn, sometime throughout this program, if we could learn a little bit more about licensure and the steps to take towards licensure, because I know that a lot of us are looking forward to that coming, post graduation and stuff like that, and I want to be prepared for it. So I feel like if we work together as a community, we can be most prepared. So that's all I have.
In the School of Social Work, we'll have a before the semester is out, we'll have, it's not a lunch and not a lunch and learn, but we'll have one of our sessions focused around licensing, and I'll get the people from a couple of folks that's a part of the Association of Black Social Workers who are licensed and work with our licensing board here to come and talk with you guys about that.
And I know that in counseling, Dr. Giddings has had people to come in and speak about that whole process for national certification and licensure as well. But if we certainly can invite people from the state also to come and talk to you about what that whole process looks like as well. I'll be certainly happy to help facilitate building those relationships with folks from the state who can come and talk to the students as well.
Mm-hmm. And that probably will happen in your practice class or even in the practicum, Cameron. I was just thinking too that they'll probably do that.
Thank you so much.
There was one question in the chat though that was about a person having kind of a different disposition from their internship supervisor. And I know she played, I think it was Kishana. She placed it in there twice. I don't want to ignore her. So Kishana Bailey, you're going to have supervisors who don't have the same disposition and personality that you have. That's just inevitable. You're going to have supervisors in the real world who don't have the same disposition or temperament that you have. But there's still something to learn from those individuals. Once again, finding a mentor who maybe does have a disposition that's more aligned to yours is really important. Your faculty supervisor is also involved in that supervision process as well. I'm not sure if you're a counseling student or a social work student, but it really doesn't matter because supervision it cuts across both of our disciplines. But you're going to have supervisors whose disposition does not quite align with yours. That's just going to happen. But there's still things that you can learn and take away from that person, even though your dispositions or your styles or your theoretical orientation might not be quite the same. But that's that's a question I could probably spend a little bit more time talking to you about if you want to come by the office. If you're my student or not, it doesn't matter. I'd be happy to talk. Because I've had supervisors that were, their dispositions were very different from mine. As you can tell, I'm very forthcoming and sort of direct, and they were not quite that way. And so people have different supervision styles, different management styles, different engagement dispositions as well. But we still can learn from them.
Yeah. I agree, Dean Turner. I think we all have had those supervisors that probably didn't quite mesh with our personalities, but you learn what you can and just know it's a temporary situation and be ready to
just
move
continue to push forward and do the right thing. We've had supervisors ourselves, Dean Jones, that we've had a very different temperament and style around, but we keep focused on the mission and the vision, what we're asked to do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to have to go, but I hate to leave. This was great.
Thank
Well,
you
before you
so,
go-
so much, Dean Turner and
Yeah.
Dean Jones. We really, really appreciate you guys taking out your Saturday morning to come talk to the CICE fellows. This recording we'll put on our YouTube page to look back on.
So
do
we're going to
you
go
have any
viral.
final words? I'm
So
sorry.
we're going viral then.
You're going viral. You're going viral.
Yep.
Especially with the I don't know, some people might want to debate you guys' yard.
Oh,
don't
It did
know.
sound like it was a competition, right? We need to
Yeah.
see the
it's not a competition. We just share
But
that with
some is
each other.
good. You heard what I heard, Miss Campbell. These yards sound promising.
We'll
Yes.
have to, we have to
Yeah,
post, we have
I
to
know. I
post
think we need
our
some photo
yard. Yeah.
evidence.
I'm
Okay,
just saying, Dr.
okay,
Giddens and I, we
all
got
right,
some nice
we'll do
Need the
yards.
that.
too. We got
mailbox
a
with
great yard.
flowers.
I'm gonna go out there and do that for you right now.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any final words?
I would just say stay the course, people. Stay the course, stay focused. You can do it. You will do it, and you'll have an opportunity to look back on this and share this same experience with other students that are coming behind you.
Echo what Dean Jones is saying, walk in excellence in everything that you do.
And then I would say, as you all leave Dean Jones and Dean Turner, I'm sure that each one of these students, as they walk the halls over the next few weeks, I hope they personally introduce themselves to you, because now you really will be able to put a face to a name. Because you know these students, they've been in your programs either 1, 2, 3 years. Miss Bailey's had a whole baby. This one, I'm surprised the baby not driving, but I had her last year, so I know it's always like a warm feeling when I get to see my students in person. They get to see how short I am. But I hope they'll introduce themselves to you. And then we just want to say thank you again from Miss Campbell, Dr. Giddens, Miss Parson Hudson, and myself for just taking the time out to meet with the students again on this Saturday morning. We know you've got a lot to do, and we really do appreciate that. And we thank you for that. And then Ms. Campbell, did you want to let the scholars know anything upcoming or any next steps for them? But we wanted to just say thank you again. And yeah.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much.
No, I don't have anything. Just if you have any questions for me, feel free to email me. Of course, Miss Parson Hudson is in your group me. So I've been having her to kind of send you guys stuff. I didn't want to be, y'all might want to talk about us behind our back. I don't wanna be in there.
I know they do. My edges done came in though. So y'all can scratch all of those comments.
So just if you're not in a group me, join the group me. I'm not in there. Dr. Jones not in there. Dr. Gibbs not in there. We'll have our interns in there and their students too. So if y'all want to talk about our edges, you know, feel free, you know. But yes, any other questions?
When is the next, Ms. Campbell?
I'm sorry, what?
When is our next session?
Our next session is going to be October 12th. October 12th.
So that's the week before homecoming.
That will be with Dr. Ken Shell.
Nice.
It'll be a lot different than this one, but you guys are in for a treat with Dr. Shell. So I'm excited about that. And we'll give you more information about the Canvas page and the reflection document that you'll need to upload. So that reflection document is due like the day before our next session. So that'll be due like October 11th. So yeah. Any other questions?
Hopefully
you
we
shoot
can
it
do
to
something.
Ms. Parson Hudson. She can get that to me. You can come to me directly. Yeah.
Ms. Campbell, I just want to tell the fellows to please look in the group me. Coming up next week, we're going to do a poll, I think, on whether you all want to get together during homecoming with some alum as well. So just look out for that in the group me.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, you are all free.
We want to say thank you again for being a part of the program. The sky's the limit for you. We know y'all are all wearing multiple hats. So I know we want to definitely extend a big thank you and encouraging words to you, because I'm sure you all are doing 20-something hours in the practicum. You have families, relationships, situationships. So we just want to truly support that. Desiree, she is doing a commercial. She says she facilitating a workshop at her internship. So we're gonna find out about this workshop. Let's get some more details on that.
I'll
Okay,
put it in the
but we
chat.
do record these sessions as well, because we definitely still need you all to upload those reflection papers. That shows us which sessions, how you're working those out within the field. Because remember, within the particular grant and the program, one of our overarching goals is to increase the number of behavioral health specialists. So we don't want to make it like a class, but we do want you to know like the beginning and the end. Like we want to improve, we want to make sure we're encouraging, because our goal is to increase and support our communities, particularly the communities of color that you all are reaching and working with. Final words, Ms. Campbell. I'm done. I'm putting myself on.